Okay, we're in our last week, our last set of videos, and now we are going to approach metabolism. We learned about the macromolecules of biochemistry, and before that we learned about organic molecules and organic reactions, and then we covered enzymes, the things that catalyze all of the reactions in biochemistry. But now we're actually going to talk about those reactions in biochemistry. And the word that covers all the biochemical reactions that are existing inside your cells, that big word is called metabolism. So metabolism is basically the sum of all the chemical reactions in a cell. Okay? There's two categories that both combined are considered metabolism. There's catabolism and anabolism. So what's the difference? Catabolism, catabolic reactions, are the reactions that will take large molecules and break them down and make smaller molecules, okay? And the result of that is an output of energy, and cellular energy is in the form of ATP, okay? So catabolic reactions are taking large molecules, turning them into smaller molecules, breaking them down. And when you break all those bonds, you are releasing energy, and that energy is in the form of ATP. Anabolic reactions, these guys do the opposite. Anabolism, these are the reactions that are considered building up. So you're taking smaller molecules and you're putting them together to make a bigger molecule, okay? And in order to do that, in order to create all those bonds, you need an input of ATP. So the cool thing is that these guys are linked. You are doing all the catabolic reactions to produce ATP, and then you can use that ATP to do the anabolic reactions. Well, where are we getting the large molecules in order to break them down and make ATP? That's your food. So you are eating so that you can give your body these large molecules, the carbohydrates and the lipids and sometimes proteins, and your body breaks them, digests them and then breaks them down into smaller molecules. So basically, your glucose is broken down into eventually carbon dioxide and water and a whole bunch of ATPs. Your triglycerides, your fatty acids, and glycerol are all broken down and eventually become carbon dioxide and water and a whole bunch of ATPs. So the end result of catabolic reactions, carbon dioxide and water, and a whole bunch of ATP, okay? That's catabolism. Anabolism, but where do we get the large molecules from? The food that you eat. So you got to eat in order to do catabolism. And you got to do catabolism to be able to do anabolism. Why? Because you need a source of ATP. You need energy input. Well, where are you going to get this energy input in order to build molecules in your body? From the catabolism. So you got to eat, break it all down, get energy, use that energy to make molecules inside your body. Okay? Lots of anabolic reactions. If we have some time, we'll get into them, but we're mainly going to be focusing on catabolism. Okay? I want to just briefly mention some things that ATP are used for. So since I mentioned it right now, what are the uses of ATP? What do we use ATP in the body for? Number one, anabolism. So basically, you are eating so that you can make all this ATP so that you can use it to build molecules in your body. All right? Anabolism is to build up some molecules. Second thing, movement. If you've had an A&P class recently, or hopefully you remember some of it, remember every time you move, actin and myosin slide against each other and ATP is involved. So in order for us to move, we need ATP. Okay, so movement is another key function of ATP in the body. If we didn't have ATP, we wouldn't be able to have that actin myosin sliding and all of that good stuff. Okay, number 3, active transport. That sounds like a biology term. You probably had it in a bio class. What is active transport? That's when you are putting things into a cell against a concentration gradient. Okay, so there are sometimes you have to force molecules into a cell, and you can't do that unless you have ATP. So these are some basic uses for ATP in the body. There are others, but these are the ones that I want to mention right now. All right, so we understand the concept of metabolism, what it is, catabolism and anabolism. Now, in order to do metabolism, like I said, you've got to eat, right? So in order to provide your body with all the nutrients, you're going to have to digest your nutrients. So we're going to first focus in on carbohydrates and talk about carbohydrate digestion. Carbohydrate digestion. Okay. I don't know why the board is looking pretty bad. I need to clean it off before the next video. All right. So what's going on with carbohydrate? Let's say you just ate breakfast and you had a bagel and some juice and a banana and maybe a bowl of cereal with some milk, okay? So you just gave your body some starch and some fructose in the banana. There's also starch in the banana. And you gave your body some lactose in the milk with your cereal. And the cereal, maybe it was sweetened cereal. Not that you'd be eating a whole bunch of unhealthy sweetened cereal, but, you know, might be fun. Let's say you're really into Fruit Loops or something like that. Okay, so this is the stuff you just consumed. Okay, you had some starch, you had some fructose. These are all carbohydrates. So what is happening in your body? Well, in the mouth, we have an enzyme called salivary amylase. So the first thing that happens is in the mouth, and you have salivary amylase. And what does salivary amylase do? It will take any polysaccharide and hydrolyze the glycosidic bonds and turn it into a smaller polysaccharide and maybe a disaccharide. And that disaccharide would have to be maltose because remember, starch, glycogen, amylose, amylopectin, glycogen, they all are just thousands of glucoses. So let's say the salivary amylase will turn the polysaccharides into smaller polysaccharides. I won't write the full name out. And some maltoses. Okay, so that's it. And then in the stomach, nothing happens. Nothing's going on in the stomach. Okay, and now we're in the small intestine. And in the small intestine, so nothing in the stomach. In the small intestine, you've got pancreatic amylase, and that will finish the hydrolysis of the glycosidic bonds of amylose and amylopectin. It will finish all of that, finish the hydrolysis of the smaller polysaccharide glycosidic bonds. So now we have thousands of glucoses, okay? Also in the small intestine, we've got maltase. Remember we mentioned these before. Lactase, assuming you're not lactose intolerant, and sucrase. So these three enzymes will hydrolyze the three disaccharides, the maltose, the lactose, and the sucrose. And now, at the end, you are left with thousands of glucoses and fructoses and galactoses. You just have monosaccharides. But which monosaccharides? Glucose, fructose, and galactose. Okay, so that's what we have. These guys can now go through the villi into the bloodstream. And once they're in the bloodstream, they end up going over to the liver. Okay, and then we start the processes of sending the glucose to cells in the body, and then the fructose and galactose end up going through the same glycolytic pathway, glycolysis, that is glucose goes to, but they have to go through an intermediate. So we'll get into the metabolism of the monosaccharides as we progress on. I think that would probably be maybe the next video or the video after that. All right, so right now your glucose is in the bloodstream, your blood glucose level goes up, and glucose wants to get into, your muscle cells. It can easily get into the brain, but in order for glucose to get into a muscle cell, the hormone insulin has to be released. So we'll talk about that in the next video, but now we're done with this part. We'll continue on with this story in the next video. Okay.